Welcome to EduCasts, home of EduCasters. What is school for? Is it a place to get filled up with facts, like a gas tank being topped off for a long trip? Is it a boot camp for the mind, a place to drill and discipline the intellect so it can think logically? Or is it a place to memorize the essentials that everyone in a society needs to know? For most of American history, the answer was some combination of yes to all of the above. A school was a subject-centered, teacher-run, fact-based institution. Then, at the turn of the 20th century, a new, radical, and profoundly American idea came along. It argued that all those old answers were wrong because they missed the most important thing in the room, the child. This idea, called Progressivism, argued that a child's mind isn't a gas tank to be filled, it's a fire to be lit. And it argued that a child isn't just a brain in a jar that you send to school. A child is a whole, living, breathing person. They have emotions, a social life, a physical body, a home life, and a natural, burning curiosity. To ignore all that and to just focus on the brain was not only foolish, it was damaging. Progressivism, championed by the legendary John Dewey but built by thousands of social reformers, wasn't just a new teaching style. It was a full-blown revolution. It was a demand to throw out the old, rigid, factory model school and replace it with a new one. A school built around the whole child, their experiences, and their interests. It's the single most influential and most controversial idea in the history of American education. It's the reason you do group projects, the reason schools have art and music, and the reason we talk about critical thinking and social-emotional learning. This essay will explore what progressivism really is, where its white-hot urgency came from, and why we are still fighting the same battles it started over 100 years ago. To understand progressivism, you cannot start in a classroom. You have to start in a 1900s factory, a crowded city slum, and a corrupt political backroom. Progressivism wasn't born as an academic theory. It was born as a political and social rescue mission. The America of the Gilded Age in the late 1800s was a mess. Industrialization had created massive wealth for a few, the robber barons, but shocking poverty for the many. Factories were dark, dangerous, and mind-numbing. Millions of people, including small children, worked 12-hour days in horrible conditions. Cities were exploding. Immigrants poured in from all over the world, crammed into tenements that were unhealthy and unsafe. Politics was famously corrupt, run by bosses and machines. And the schools? The traditional schools were built for this system. They were rigid, joyless fact factories. The teacher was a dictator. Students sat in silent rows. The method was drill and kill. Memorize the facts, recite them back, and get punished, often with a ruler or a switch if you failed. The goal was to create obedient, punctual factory workers who would not question authority. A whole generation of reformers, the progressives, looked at this world and said, "This is unacceptable. This is not America." These were the muckraking journalists like Upton Sinclair, who exposed the meatpacking plants. They were social reformers like Jane Addams, who built Hull House in Chicago to provide daycare, healthcare, and education for poor immigrant families. There were politicians like Teddy Roosevelt, who went to war against the giant corrupt trusts. The educators were the arm of this movement. People like John Dewey looked at the system and made a brilliant connection. The old, rigid schools were part of the problem. They were undemocratic. They were teaching passive obedience. Dewey and the other progressives argued that if you want to fix a democracy, you can't just change the laws. You have to change the schools. The schools must become the engine of democracy. You have to stop training obedient little workers and start training active, critical thinking, compassionate citizens who know how to solve problems together. So what does this new revolutionary school look like? The progressive platform was built on a few core, non-negotiable ideas. 1. Focus on the whole child. This is the big one. This is the cornerstone of the entire philosophy. A child is not a computer you program with facts. A child is a complex human being. The progressives were the first to insist that a school must be responsible for the whole person. This means intellectual. Yes, the brain matters, but not for memorizing facts. It matters for thinking and problem solving. Social. Kids are not isolated units. They are social. School must teach them how to collaborate, communicate, and get along. Emotional. A child's feelings, their self-esteem, their fears, and their joys, all of this is part of learning. A scared, bored, or shamed child cannot learn. Physical. A child who is hungry or sick cannot learn. This is where the progressive movement for school nurses, free lunches, and physical education (PE) came from. 2. The child's interest is the starting point. The old model said, here are the subjects, learn them. The curriculum was a non-negotiable list of essentials, essentialism, or greats, perennialism, handed down from on high. The progressive said, that's backward. A child's mind is not a blank slate. It's already active and curious. The teacher's job is to find what the child is already interested in, whether it's bugs, trains, or fairy tales, and use that interest as a hook. That hook is the on-ramp to the real curriculum. A kid loves bugs? Great. That's your hook for biology, classifying them, for math, counting their legs, for art, drawing them, and for reading, researching them in a book. The child learns more because the learning is attached to something they care about. 3. Learning by doing, experiential education. This is John Dewey's most famous phrase. Progressives believe that people don't learn by just listening to someone talk. They learn by doing, by experiencing, by running into a problem and having to fix it. You don't learn science by memorizing the periodic table. You learn it by mixing chemicals and seeing what happens. You don't learn civics by memorizing the 3 branches of government. You learn it by practicing it, forming a student council to solve a real problem, like a messy playground. Debating the solutions and voting on a plan. The school garden project is a perfect example. It's messy, hands-on, and forces kids to use math, science, and reading to solve a real problem. 4. School is a miniature democracy. This was Dewey's why. For him, democracy wasn't just a subject you learned in history class. It was a muscle you had to exercise. The old-fashioned, teacher-as-dictator classroom was profoundly undemocratic. A progressive classroom is a democracy in miniature. It's a community. Kids work in groups. They learn to share, to listen to other opinions, to debate ideas, not people, and to compromise for the common good. The goal is that when they graduate, they don't just know about democracy, they know how to do it. 5. The teacher as guide on the side. If the school is a community and the kids are the active doers, then the teacher's role has to change. The teacher is no longer the sage on the stage, the all-knowing authority who just pours knowledge into empty heads. Instead, the teacher is a guide on the side. They are a facilitator, a coach, a resource, and a master question asker. Their job is harder. They have to know the curriculum and the children. They have to know when to step in with a guiding question and when to step back and let the kids struggle and learn for themselves.